Hello, my friends and viewers. In this video, I might be gonna be upping a lot of stuff because I think this is something that I went through based off my experience, and I'm willing to share with you guys. So let me just get straight to the point. So when I was around like 7 years old in primary school, because I just started primary school my first year, so also known as primary one. During those time, I was a very introverted person. I wasn't really like a very social person. I wasn't really into talking to much people around me, or like my classmates around me. I was a very silent person. I would barely even talk, and I would get a lot of complaints from my teachers. Like they would tell my parents saying, "Oh, your son is not talking much. He's very silent and blah blah blah." When I was in primary two and primary one and primary two, sorry. And in case you were wondering what about my kindergarten, let's just say my kindergarten, I was a very quiet person as well. Well, I was a very playful, boy, obviously, but I really wasn't having much friends, like kindergarten friends, those times. To be honest, no. So let me get back to primary school. So in primary school, primary one, primary two, I didn't really have that interest of getting friends. I was just somewhat focused on my studies, but sometimes really didn't really give a damn about it most of the time. So primary three, primary four, primary five, primary six. So these years, when primary three started, from primary three to primary six, I started talking a lot. I started learning and I started talking a lot. But what I didn't realize was I thought talking a lot would at least help me make friends. When I try to at least mingle in groups, try to talk with some of my classmates. But usually, the things I'm interested in is uh how to say this, like watching movies or watching sport that I'm familiar with, or like playing such games that I'm familiar with. But when my classmates talk, they don't. They usually most of them would talk about like ML, Mobile Legends, which I've never played before in my life. To just let you guys know, um, they would talk about Mobile Legends or like dating such girl, even at a young age. And I wasn't. I to be honest, at that time I wasn't familiar with this so-called dating and things, but I didn't know it existed at a very young age when I was like primary five, primary four. So during that time, so when I tried to talk, the more I realized when I tried to, because I would try to make up something to just get into that conversation with my classmates, but the more I realize I'm not really being myself. I'm not really talking things that is related to me. Talking to people that I can relate with. Because my stupid excuse for a brain was having that, not only having the grade for having like a girlfriend in my life, but also had that grade for having friends. Because I didn't really had much friends. I'm being straight up honest. I didn't. I've never hang out with any friend of mine. Well, it's very rare of me hanging out with my friends in my primary school days. It was very rare. I'm being straight up honest. I would just go home. I would just sit down. I don't know, we do my homework if possible, or just watch my phone. Literally, this was me in primary school from primary three to primary six. This was me. I was very talkative, but most of my classmates didn't like me because I don't know. Was it because I'm being annoying for whatever reason? And I didn't really know, and maybe I will never know. But it's none of my business to know. But what I'm saying is, like, the more I tried to talk, I think I was like losing the true identity of who I was. Who I realized I was not being myself, but my brain didn't really realize it. I kept trying to just fit in, but just trying to be somebody that wasn't really me, to just fit in. So let's just say primary school was not a very good year for me, but in terms of education, it was somewhat good, but it's somewhat okay for me. Other than that, somewhat after primary school finished, well, after I graduated from primary school, and then next was secondary school, obviously, the start of secondary one. So the start of secondary one and secondary two was a bit of a year to, let's just say, to forget in terms of having friends, but in terms of education, it was something to remember of because it was a very good year for me, and I was improving a bit educationally a bit. I'm not a top grader. No, I was a bit of a mid student. Just to say, I am not a very high educated guy. I'm not a top grader. No, I was just mid. So yeah, even during those times, I was trying to make friends. I talked a lot in secondary school. I did talk a lot, but then I realized there are like a few gangster classmates who think that me trying to try to be more friendly was a bit stupid because they, typical Gen Z. So they try to sometimes pick on me when I try to say something. Oh, shut up, blah blah, and they just try to tease me or something. So which I find it was sometimes mostly fun, but then the more they started crossing the line, they say because sometimes they say joke that sometimes crosses the border. So, but my stupid excuse for a brain doesn't really think of reacting, shouting back. Because let's just say I was a bit of a scaredy person. Really, I was like very hesitant because if I tried to get into trouble, that was going to affect my grade, and I had to stay back for stupid detention, which I was not ready to because I had tuitions after school, and I didn't want to have the idea taking detention and going to tuition. That was like the last thing on my mind for real. But anyways, let me get this straight. So I used to be teased a lot, somewhat bullied a lot. So it was a tough year for me in terms of making friends. I just had this one classmate. His name was I'm not gonna tell his name, but his name was uh Jim. Jim. I'm not gonna say the full name, but Jim. So well, that only lasted for like a couple of weeks until he as the more he started like becoming friends with the gangster students, he kind of lost himself and he didn't really talk to me by until then, because he was the kind of person who was I was somewhat related but not really. And of course, secondary 1, secondary 2 finished, secondary 3 started. And in terms of educations and making friends, secondary 3 was actually kind of a good year for me. Secondary 3 and secondary 4. These were the years I thought at least something, there was something bright that was happening in my life. At least, at least I thought my life had turned a corner. And it kind of did. But in terms of having friends, like classmates, yes, I had. I had a couple of friends, but again, believe it or not, I could relate to no one except for my one classmate named Dawson, who you guys already know by now, because I mentioned him in my previous videos before. Let's just say between me and him, we didn't really talk much because me in Sec 3, me and him, we barely talked because let's just say he was in a bit of a situationship, which said in his previous video. I think most of you guys will know his channel. For those of you who don't know, I'll show you his channel right here. And the title of his video, I don't remember the title of the video, but I can show you right here because I've forgotten. But I'll show you right here. So in that video, he mentioned about the time where he had a so-called girlfriend until he had like a situationship, because for the first couple of months was a relationship, then after that became a situationship, which I'm not really willing to go in depth to because I'm I'm not really willing to go into depth because what I'm trying to say here is about my part, so forget about that. So let me tell you how this happened. So secondary 3 we didn't really talk much. So when secondary 4 started, we talked a bit, but I think that was during the time after he broke up with his girlfriend. So when June came, which was holiday, so I went to Europe. I traveled around Europe, and usually I would post on my IG story. So when Dawson saw my post, he then started texting me, "Oh, bro, you go to Switzerland? Oh, wow, nice place, bro. Cause when you come back after the holidays, can you show me the photos? I'm very curious to see." And to me, that was surprising. Believe it or not, it was really surprising for me to hear that, because of all of my entire life, I never had a friend who asked me to show him my photos that I've traveled after holidays. Never. So I realized, there's something special in this Dawson. Because I felt maybe we are gonna have that so-called brotherhood bond. I thought there was a potential, and guess what? I was right, because till this till this day, the current day, me and him are still close, even after we graduated from secondary school. So when I came back, I showed him all my photos and that I went to Europe, and then I realized when I was talking with him, when I was having this bond with him, when I was having this friendship with him, I realized I was more myself compared to the times when I try to fit in with a couple of group of friends and try to be someone to just talk, get into the conversation. But I realized that someone who I was trying to be and to fit in with wasn't really me. But when I was with Dawson, and literally to remind you, he's a very special, special person in my heart. And I'm not gay, but he's a brother by heart. And Dawson, who, if you've seen this, man, this is just appreciation, bro. Appreciation for being my best bro. Anyways, let me just get to the point. So yeah, so when I was with Dawson, I felt more of myself. I was able to relate to him more, a lot more often. And for those of you who don't know, Dawson, I mean, of course, obviously I mentioned this before. He has a YouTube channel. He has a higher subscribers than me, way higher subscribers. He has also mentioned in his community post in his channel. I can show you his post right here. In there, he mentioned about his times of making friends, and low-key, me and him also went through somewhat similar stuff. But neither of us didn't have anyone who we could relate to other than the two of us, like for real. So what I want to say here is, guys, you don't have to try to be someone else just to fit in like a couple of groups of 9 or 10 people, or God knows how many people, to just make friends. Be yourself. It's okay. I'm not saying having 2 or 3 friends is good and all that. If you want to make 10, make 15. I don't really care how many friends you make, but just make sure you don't lose your true identity. Make sure you're being yourself. You are yourself, because you don't have to be someone, try to pretend like one of them to just fit in. Because I've heard this from a song from Bruno Mars, because you're amazing just the way you are. My friend, you are amazing just the way you are. You don't have to be someone who you are not to be just to feel special. And before I peace out, for those of you who find this story of mine that I've shared in this video very impactful to you, then if you want, you can please subscribe to my channel, and of course follow me on TikTok. But in terms of long form videos, I would usually upload on YouTube, because I can't really upload on TikTok, obviously. And for those of you who find me yapping too much and thinking that I'm sharing some stupid story, I'm not forcing you. You can just, if you want, you can just click out of this video and do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. Until then, my friend, I hope this story had at least somewhat of a impact in your life in a good way. Until then, bye bye, peace out.